I woke up from a 2-year coma and asked for sushi and a glass of wine. My sister said I couldn't eat it as I was pregnant with her baby. That was the first sentence I heard after 2 years of nothing. Not welcome back. Not you're safe. Not even my name. Just a rule. A restriction. And a statement so insane my brain tried to reject it like a bad smell. Pregnant. With her baby. I blinked at the ceiling lights. They looked too bright. Too clean. Like I was trapped inside a refrigerator. My throat was dry. My tongue felt like sandpaper. I tried to speak again. I'm what? My sister leaned closer, and for a second I felt relief. Because Tracy was familiar. Tracy was family. Tracy was the person who used to sneak me candy when our mother went on health kicks. But then I saw her eyes. Not worried. Not relieved. Not emotional. They were sharp. Alert. Like she was watching a door, not a sister. You heard me, she said softly. Don't get worked up. The doctor said stress is dangerous for you. I tried to lift my hand. It barely moved. There was a tube in my arm. My body felt like it belonged to someone else. Tracy, I whispered. What are you talking about? Her smile tightened. I'm talking about the baby. You're carrying my baby. My heart thumped hard. Then harder. The monitor next to me started beeping faster. She glanced at it and then back at me. See, this is why you have to stay calm. You're fragile. Something about that word hit me wrong. Fragile. It wasn't sympathy. It was a label. A leash. I swallowed. How is that possible? She exhaled like I was being difficult. It's complicated. But it's a miracle, Marion. Miracle. That was the second word she used that didn't belong in a hospital room. The door opened and a nurse stepped in. A young woman with kind eyes and a badge that said KIM. Kim looked from the monitor to my face. Hi, Marianne. Welcome back. Try to breathe slow. Tracy reached for my hand before Kim could. She's just confused. Kim's smile stayed professional. But her eyes flicked to Tracy. Just for a moment. It was the first crack in the story. Because if this was all normal, if this was all medically true, Kim would not have looked at my sister like that. I tried to focus on Kim. Can you tell me what happened? Kim hesitated. You've been asleep for a long time. We'll go slow. Tracy squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. And we're not discussing anything upsetting right now. Kim nodded. But she did not look happy about it. Tracy leaned in again and lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. Marianne, you had an accident. You went into a coma. You were gone, but your body kept going. And I had to make choices. I had to save our family. Our family, she said. Not me. Not you. Our family. That was the third crack. Because I was the one in the bed. I was the one with tubes in my arms. I was the one who had lost 2 years of my life. But she spoke like I was a vehicle she'd been driving. And she was proud of the route she'd taken. Before I go any further, let me tell you something. If you like stories where somebody wakes up to a nightmare and decides not to scream, not to beg, but to get smart and get even, then I need you to do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe. Because what my sister did next wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't grief. It was a plan. And the only reason she almost got away with it is because everybody assumes the person in the hospital bed is the weakest person in the room. They were wrong. My name is Marion Feldman. I was 61 years old when I woke up. And the last thing I remembered was leaving my office on a rainy Tuesday and thinking, just for a second, that I should have taken the long way home. I owned a small financial planning firm in Northern California. Nothing flashy. No yachts. No private jets. Just a steady business I built over 30 years by being careful, consistent, and boring in the best way. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a husband anymore either. Daniel died 12 years earlier. Cancer. Fast and unfair. Like life sometimes is. After he died, work became my anchor. My structure. My proof that I could still stand. Tracy was my younger sister, 58. Divorced. Always in and out of trouble that wasn't technically illegal but always smelled like smoke. She was charming. That's the thing. Tracy was the kind of person who could make a stranger laugh in a checkout line. And she was the kind of person who could steal from your purse while you were laughing. We were not close. Not the way people pretend sisters are. But we spoke. We did holidays. We kept the peace. Mostly because I didn't have the energy to fight with someone who treated every boundary like a challenge. I remembered leaving my office. Then nothing. And then sushi and wine and pregnancy and miracle. When Kim left, Tracy pulled a chair closer to my bed like she was settling in for a long talk. "You're in a recovery unit," she said. "The doctors say your brain is doing well. You just need time." "How long have I been here?" I asked. 2 years. I stared at her. My stomach turned. 2 years. Tracy nodded like she was confirming the weather. "I've been here every day." That was a lie. I knew it before I even had proof. Tracy didn't do every day. She did when it benefits me. I tried to shift in the bed and my muscles screamed. Tracy continued. "During the coma, you couldn't make decisions. So I became your medical proxy. And your guardian. Legally." I stared at her face. "My guardian, yes. How you signed papers years ago," she said quickly. "Remember, after Daniel died. You did all that legal stuff." I did do legal stuff. I did create documents. I did name a healthcare proxy. I did not name Tracy. I named my friend Angela. Angela Ramirez. A retired nurse who took no nonsense and had the moral spine of a steel beam. Tracy watched my face and must have seen something change. "You're not remembering right," she said. "It's normal, it's brain recovery." There it was. The first time she tried to make me doubt my own mind. I swallowed. "If I'm pregnant, where is the baby monitor? Why isn't anyone checking?" Tracy's mouth tightened again. "Because it's early. And you're high risk." "How far along?" She paused. "Just a beat. A few months." My throat went cold. "A few months." Tracy nodded too fast. "Yes, it happened during the coma." I stared at the ceiling again, because if I looked at her too long I was going to start screaming, and I could tell she wanted me to scream. Because if I screamed she could call me unstable. And if I was unstable she could keep her grip. I turned my head slowly back to her. "How did it happen?" Tracy smiled, and this time it was almost affectionate. Like she was explaining a bedtime story to a child. "I used an embryo," she said. "One of mine. I had them frozen years ago. Remember, when I tried IVF with Jeff?" I did remember that. Tracy had tried to have a baby with her second husband. It never worked. "But why me?" I whispered. "Because you were alive," she said. "You were here, and I wasn't getting any younger, and our family needs someone strong." Again. Not me. The family. And then she said the sentence that told me everything I needed to know about her. "And honestly," she added, "you weren't using your uterus for anything." I went still. I felt the rage rise up hot and clean. But I did not let it show. Because I knew something in my bones. If I lost control, she would win. So I said, very softly, "I want to speak to my doctor." Tracy's eyes narrowed. "You can't handle too much right now." "I want to speak to my doctor," I repeated. She leaned closer. "Marianne, don't do this. Don't make this hard. We've come so far. We've come so far." Like she and I had built something together. Like my coma was a group project. Kim came back in later with a tray of broth and gelatin. Tracy watched like a prison guard. When Tracy stepped out to take a phone call, Kim moved closer to my bed and lowered her voice. "Marianne," she said gently. "Can you tell me your date of birth?" I told her. "Can you tell me what year it is?" 2026, I guessed, because Tracy had said 2 years and my last memory was 2024. Kim nodded. "Good." I watched her face. "Kim, am I pregnant?" Kim froze. Not for long. Not dramatically. Just a flicker. Then she smiled too brightly. "You should rest, Kim." Her eyes softened. "I can't discuss everything right now, but I can tell you this. If something doesn't feel right, you're allowed to ask questions." That was not an answer. But it was a message. When Tracy came back, Kim stepped away. Tracy's voice turned sweet. "Everything okay?" Kim nodded. "Vitals are fine." Tracy smiled at me. "See. You're safe. Just do what we tell you." That night I didn't sleep much. My body was exhausted, but my mind was racing. I tried to replay my life like a timeline. I remembered my documents. My will. My medical proxy. My financial power of attorney. Angela. Angela had been my choice because she would never let Tracy run anything. So how was Tracy sitting in this room acting like she owned my air? By the third day, I could sit up without feeling like I was going to vomit. Tracy brought me water. She brought me bland food. She brought me a prenatal vitamin which made my stomach twist. Take it, she said. I looked at it. I want to see my chart. Tracy laughed. Marianne, I want to see my chart. Her smile disappeared. You don't need to. Yes, I do. She leaned in again, voice low. You're not running your life right now. You're recovering. And you're carrying my baby. You need to stop acting like you're in charge. That was the fourth crack. Because she didn't say, we'll get you your independence back. She said you're not running your life. As if it was a permanent state. I took the vitamin. I pretended. And I started watching. I noticed Tracy always positioned herself between me and my phone. I noticed she answered texts on my behalf. I could see her thumbs moving. I noticed she kept asking the nurses what medications I was getting. And I noticed something else. When doctors came in, Tracy talked over them. She interrupted. She redirected. She made herself the center of every conversation. On day 5, a social worker came in. A middle-aged man with a calm voice and a clipboard. Marianne, he said, I'm here to discuss your discharge plan. When you're ready. Tracy's head snapped up. She's not going home. The social worker blinked. Eventually she will. Tracy smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Not if it's dangerous for the baby. The social worker looked at me. Marianne, do you have thoughts on where you'd like to recover? I opened my mouth. Tracy cut in. She's confused. The social worker paused. Marianne, are you confused? I looked him in the eye and said calmly, I'm not confused. I'm tired, and I'm being told things that don't make sense. Tracy laughed sharply. Oh my God. Here we go. The social worker's face tightened. Tracy, can you step outside for a moment? Tracy's smile dropped. No. He kept his voice steady. I'm asking you to step outside. Tracy's eyes flashed. Then she stood up slowly. Fine. But she needs to rest. When the door shut, the social worker leaned closer. Marianne, do you feel safe? I hesitated. Because the truth was, I didn't know what Tracy was capable of. But I knew she was capable of ruining me legally, so I said I feel controlled. He nodded like he understood. Do you know who your legal guardian is? Yes, I said. And it should not be her. He frowned. The paperwork says Tracy was granted temporary guardianship after a petition. My stomach dropped. Petition by who? He flipped a page. Angela Ramirez filed an objection. But it was dismissed. Angela tried. Can you contact Angela? I asked. He hesitated. We can request a call. Tracy came back in before he could say more. Like she had been waiting at the door. That night she sat in the chair and watched me like she was daring me to run. You're not going to turn people against me, she said quietly. I stared at her. I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to understand why you're lying. Her eyes widened a little. Then she smiled. You're paranoid. I'm awake, I said. Tracy leaned in. Marianne, you don't get it. This is bigger than you. I almost laughed. That's your favorite phrase. She ignored it. Your business needed leadership. Your assets needed management. Your bills needed paying. And I did it. I stared at her. You did it. I saved everything you built, she said. You should be grateful. Grateful. Of course. The next morning Kim came in early. Tracy wasn't there yet. Kim checked the 4th. She checked my vitals. Then she paused like she was making a decision. Marianne, she said quietly. Do you know what medication you're on? I shook my head. Kim swallowed. They reduced your pain management because of the pregnancy. I stared at her. They reduced. Kim nodded. And they delayed certain therapies. Same reason. My hands curled slightly on the blanket. Kim, am I pregnant? Kim looked toward the door. Then back at me. Her voice dropped. I can't say much. But I can tell you that you need to request your own medical records. In writing. And you need to ask for a patient advocate. My heart pounded. Why can't you say it? Kim's eyes glistened. Because I have to work here. And because your sister has been very involved. That was enough. Tracy arrived 10 minutes later carrying a smoothie like we were at a yoga retreat. Good morning, Mama, she said loud enough for the hallway to hear. Mama. I forced a weak smile. Because in that moment, I decided something. I was going to let her think she was winning. And I was going to collect everything she said while she thought I was helpless. Tracy sat down and started talking about baby names. I like grace, she said. Or hope. Something meaningful. I nodded slowly. Grace is nice. She brightened. See, you're coming around. I sipped the smoothie. My stomach twisted. Then I said lightly, who's the father? Tracy paused. It doesn't matter. It matters medically, I said. Genetics. Family history. Tracy waved a hand. Donor. From where? She hesitated. A clinic. What clinic? Tracy's smile tightened again. Marianne, stop interrogating me. I'm trying to be responsible, I said. You said I'm carrying your baby. I should know things. Tracy leaned in, voice sharp. You know what you need to know? You need to rest. You need to do what you're told. And you need to stop acting like you can take control back overnight. There it was again. Not recovery. Control. Later that day, a doctor came in. Dr. Patel. Calm. Middle-aged. Kind face. Marianne, he said. How are you feeling? Confused, I said. Tracy laughed. She's adjusting. I looked at Dr. Patel. Am I pregnant? Dr. Patel's eyes flicked to Tracy. Just like Kim's had. He cleared his throat. We're focusing on your neurological recovery. That's not an answer, I said. Tracy stood. Marianne, stop. Dr. Patel held up a hand. Marianne. We can discuss everything in time. In time, I repeated. That phrase is how people delay the truth. Tracy turned on her sweetest voice. Doctor, she's been emotional. I think she needs something to calm her. I looked at Tracy. I'm not emotional. Tracy smiled. You're raising your voice. I wasn't. But she wanted the doctor to believe I was. Dr. Patel said gently, Marianne, I'm going to recommend we limit stressors. I stared at him. So you're going to limit my questions? He didn't answer. That was the moment I knew. Not just that Tracy was lying, but that she had influence. And influence in a hospital is power. I later learned that Tracy hadn't just charmed the staff, she had bullied the hospital's legal department into a corner. By presenting her fraudulent guardianship papers and threatening a massive malpractice suit if they endangered the pregnancy by stressing me out, she forced Dr. Patel and the nurses into a state of paralysis. They weren't lying for her because they liked her, they were staying silent because the hospital's board had ordered them not to contradict the legal guardian until a court ruled otherwise. She had turned the hospital's fear of a lawsuit into my cage. That night I asked Kim for a pen and paper. Tracy was in the bathroom fixing her makeup like she was on camera. Kim slid the items onto my tray. What are you writing? Tracy called from the sink. A grocery list, I said. Tracy laughed. Cute. I wrote 3 sentences. I request a patient advocate. I request my complete medical records. I revoke any consent given by proxy, effective immediately. I signed my name. My handwriting was shaky, but it was mine. Kim took the paper and folded it like it was nothing. She looked at me and whispered. On day 9, I heard the line that changed everything. It happened at shift change. Tracy had stepped out to take a call. I was half asleep. My door was cracked open. Voices floated in from the hallway. A male voice. A female voice. Then Dr. Patel. The female voice said, we can't keep letting her sister control the narrative. The patient is asking direct questions. Dr. Patel sighed. The guardian has legal authority. The male voice said, not if the patient is competent. Then the female voice said, very clearly, and she's not pregnant. I sat bolt upright. My heart slammed against my ribs. Dr. Patel said, lower your voice. The male voice said, I'm serious. She's not pregnant. It's in the chart. She can't be. It's medically impossible. My vision blurred. Not from tears. From rage. Because I knew then. The pregnancy was never a mistake. It was a tool. A leash. A story to keep me quiet. Tracy came back in smiling. I forced my face into confusion again. Into weakness. She sat down. How are you, Mama? I swallowed. Tired. Tracy nodded. Good. Sleep is good for the baby. I smiled faintly. And inside I said, I'm going to ruin you. At the time I thought the pregnancy lie was the worst part. I was wrong. Because the pregnancy lie was just the wrapper. The real gift inside was what she had done to my life while I was asleep. The next 2 weeks were a performance. I acted like I believed her. I asked baby name questions. I nodded at her miracle talk. And every time she got comfortable, I asked the same questions again in a slightly different way. Where is my house? Where is my car? How is my business? Tracy answered like she was reading a script. And she kept slipping. Oh, your house is being renovated. Oh, your car got sold. It was just sitting. Oh, your business is fine. I helped. Helped. One afternoon she said, I moved your accounts into something safer. I smiled. That sounds smart. Then I asked, what accounts? Tracy's eyes narrowed. All of them. All of them, I repeated. So my operating account, my retirement, my personal savings. Tracy nodded too fast. Yes, it's all under control. I waited a beat. Under whose name? Her jaw tightened. Mine. Temporarily. I held my smile. Temporarily. Tracy leaned back. Marianne, don't start. You would have wanted this. You were unconscious. You aren't paying bills. I nodded. Of course. Then I said gently, did I still have my office lease? Tracy blinked. We moved. Moved where? She waved a hand. Online. My stomach dropped. My business was built on trust. On in-person meetings. On older clients who liked paper statements and eye contact. You don't just move that online. Unless you are stripping it down to a bank account. That night, Kim brought me my first copy of partial records. Not the full chart. Not yet. Just enough to confirm what I already knew. It was one page. A lab report. Negative HCG. Not pregnant. Tracy walked in while I was staring at it. What's that? She asked. I quickly flipped it over. Nothing. Tracy stepped closer. Let me see. I held it tighter. It's private. Tracy smiled like she was trying not to laugh. Marianne, you don't have private right now. She reached for it. I let her take it. Because I wanted to see what she would do. Tracy scanned it. Her face didn't change much. Then she tore it in half. Then in half again. Then she dropped the pieces into the trash. That's wrong paperwork, she said calmly. Mistake. I stared at her. You tore my paperwork. Tracy leaned in. Her voice dropped. Listen to me. You are alive because I made decisions. You are here because I protected you. And you will keep your mouth shut because if you don't, I can make your recovery very difficult. I held her gaze. And I said quietly, are you threatening me? Tracy smiled. I'm guiding you. Then she patted my shoulder like I was a child. And walked out. That was when I understood the real twist. Tracy wasn't just lying to keep control. She was lying because she had already crossed legal lines. And the only way she survived was if I stayed labeled as confused. So I stopped asking nurses for help. I started asking for names. Who was the hospital counsel? Who was the patient advocate supervisor? Who ran the ethics board? Kim gave me one name. A woman named Denise Holloway. Patient advocate, known for not being easily bullied. Denise came to my room 2 days later. Tracy was there, of course. Tracy stood up and started talking before Denise could sit down. Thank God you're here, Tracy said. Marianne is confused and paranoid. She keeps insisting she's not pregnant, which is really upsetting her and the baby. Denise looked at me. Marianne, is that true? I took a breath. And I said with absolute calm, I am not pregnant. I overheard staff confirm it. And my sister is lying to control my medications and my discharge. I need to speak without her in the room. Tracy laughed loudly. Oh my God. Denise held up a hand. Tracy, step outside. Tracy's smile vanished. No. Denise's voice stayed calm. Step outside or I will call security. You can be present for some conversations but not all. This is the patient's right. Tracy stared at Denise like she couldn't believe someone had spoken to her that way. Then she stood up slowly and walked out. Denise shut the door. Then she turned to me. Okay. I told her everything. Sushi and wine. Pregnancy lie. Torn lab report. Medication restrictions. Control of my phone. Denise's face hardened. Then she said, I need you to understand something, Marianne. Guardianship can be abused. It happens. And it usually happens the same way. Isolation. Fear. Medical control. Financial control. I nodded. So what do I do? Denise said, we document. And we move fast. That was the moment the story changed. Because now it wasn't just me versus Tracy. Now it was a record. A timeline. Receipts. Denise arranged for a competency evaluation. Tracy tried to stop it. She demanded to speak to the doctor. She threatened to sue the hospital. She cried in the hallway loud enough for other patients to hear. I stayed quiet. Because the louder she got, the uglier she looked. The evaluation happened 2 days later. A neurologist sat with me for an hour. He asked me who the president was. I answered. He asked me to count backward. I did. He asked me about my business. I explained my client base and my licensing without missing a beat. When he finished, he smiled slightly. Marian, you are competent. Those 3 words felt like oxygen. Denise filed the paperwork immediately. Tracy showed up in my room that afternoon with a face full of rage. She didn't even pretend to be sweet anymore. You did this, she hissed. I looked at her calmly. You did this. Tracy's eyes glittered. You think you can just wake up and take everything back? Yes, I said. She laughed. You have no idea what's been done while you were asleep. I nodded slowly. Then it's a good thing I'm awake. Tracy leaned in, voice shaking. You were nothing for 2 years. A body. A bill. I carried everything. I stared at her. No. You carried my life out the door. Her face twitched. And then she said something that gave me my next twist. You should be grateful I didn't pull the plug, she whispered. My blood went cold. Because that meant she had thought about it. Denise helped me get access to my full medical records. And once I had that, I started requesting my financial records. Here's the part people don't understand. When you build a life quietly and responsibly, you don't imagine your own sister will try to steal it like a purse off a chair, so you do not build your defenses for family. But I had built one defense without even realizing it. Years earlier, my business partner, a careful man named Stuart Kaplan, insisted we set up a corporate structure that required 2 signatures for major financial moves. At the time I found it annoying. Now, it saved me. Stuart came to the hospital the first day Denise cleared visitors. He walked in with tears in his eyes. Marianne, he whispered. Thank God. Tracy had tried to keep him away for weeks. She told staff he was stressful. Stuart sat next to my bed and lowered his voice. She tried to drain the business account. I closed my eyes. How much? He swallowed. 200,000. She said it was for your care, but the paperwork was wrong. I blocked it. I opened my eyes. Thank you. Stuart nodded. Then she tried to sell your client list. My stomach twisted. She tried to sell my clients. Stuart's jaw clenched. Yes. And when I refused, she threatened to report me for fraud. She said she had authority. I breathed slowly. What about my house? Stuart hesitated. My heart sank. Stuart. He exhaled. Marianne, your house is gone. The room went quiet. I stared at him. Gone. He nodded. It was sold 8 months ago. I felt something inside me turn into ice. Tracy didn't renovate my house. She sold it. And she didn't do it because she needed money for my care. She did it because she wanted liquid cash and no loose ends. Stuart reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. I brought what I could. Sale documents, bank transfers, names of accounts. I took the folder with shaking hands. And then I saw it. The buyer name. Not a stranger. An LLC. Hollow Creek Holdings. I looked up at Stuart. Who owns this? Stuart's face went pale. That's the thing, it traces back to Tracy. She didn't sell my house to get rid of it. She sold my house to herself, through a shell company. And she thought I would never wake up to notice. Around this point in the story, I want to ask you something. If you woke up and realized the person holding your hand had been quietly selling your life while you slept, what would you do? Would you explode? Would you beg? Would you forgive because it's family? Or would you do what I did? Would you stay calm? And start building the trap? Leave a comment? I mean it. I want to know. Because the next part is where Tracy learned the difference between a loud person and a dangerous person. Once I was declared competent, guardianship did not vanish instantly. It had to be dissolved through court. Tracy still had some authority. Which meant she still had access. Which meant she still believed she had time to cover her tracks. Denise connected me with an attorney who specialized in elder exploitation and guardianship abuse. Her name was Renee Weiss. Renee was in her 50s. Sharp. No nonsense. The kind of woman who could make a judge sit up straighter with one look. Renee visited me in the hospital and listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Your sister is bold." I nodded. "She thinks bold means smart." Renee's smile was thin. "Bold means she left fingerprints." Renee filed an emergency motion to suspend Tracy's authority. Tracy fought it. Of course she did. She came into my room on the morning of the hearing wearing a white sweater and an expression of wounded innocence. She even brought flowers. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said softly. "I've loved you." I stared at the flowers. "Those are lilies." Tracy blessed. "Oh. Daniel's funeral," I said. "You brought lilies." "I told you I hate lilies. You said you didn't know." Tracy's mouth tightened. I leaned forward slightly. "You don't know me. You know my accounts." Tracy's eyes flashed. Then she started crying. It was impressive. Like a switch. "I'm your sister," she sobbed. "I saved you." I kept my voice even. "If you saved me, why did you lie about a pregnancy?" Tracy wiped her tears. "I didn't lie. Doctors told me things. I got confused." Renee stood near the door, listening. She glanced at me and gave the smallest nod. Tracy looked at Renee. "Who is she?" Renee smiled politely. "I'm Marian's attorney." Tracy froze. Then her tears stopped instantly. No sniffles. No shaking. Nothing. Just cold. She stared at me. "You got a lawyer?" "Yes," I said. Tracy's voice dropped. "You're making a mistake." I looked at her. "No, I'm correcting one." The hearing suspended Tracy's authority within 48 hours. Denise and Renee moved fast. They got a court order. They got a temporary restraining order. They notified the bank. They froze anything that could be frozen. Tracy responded the way a cornered person responds. She tried to move money. She tried to sell my car again. She tried to access my office building lease. And every attempt created a new record. More fingerprints. Then came the next twist. Renee called me one night, voice tight. "Marianne," she said, "do you have any idea who paid your hospital bills for the last 2 years?" I blinked. "My insurance." "My savings, I assume." Renee exhaled. "Your insurance covered a lot, but not everything. And the remaining payments were made from an account in your name that you did not open." My skin prickled. "What?" Renee said. "Your sister opened a line of credit using your identity. She used it to pay just enough bills to keep you alive and stable. Because she needed you alive for legal control. Then she used your assets to pay the line down. It's identity fraud." I stared at the wall. "She took out debt in my name." "Yes." I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. "So she stole my life," I said, "and then billed me for it." Renee's voice was calm. "Exactly. Tracy wasn't just stealing. She was building a story. A story where she looked like a devoted guardian. Where she looked like a savior. Where any judge would think, why punish the sister who kept her alive?" But the pregnancy lie proved something. It proved Tracy would say anything to maintain control. Which meant the savior story was fake. Now it was time for the payoff. Renee coordinated with a detective from the County Financial Crimes Unit. His name was Detective Moreno. He met me at the rehab center once I was moved out of the hospital. Tracy wasn't allowed near me anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt air in my lungs. Detective Moreno sat across from me and said, "Miss Feldman, we see a lot of family exploitation. Most victims are too embarrassed to report it." I looked him in the eye. "I'm not embarrassed." He nodded slowly. "Good." Then he said, "We need a clean admission from her. Or we need a transaction trail that is undeniable." Renee said, "We have both. We just need to package it." So we set a trap. Not a dramatic trap. Not a screaming confrontation. A calm procedural trap. We sent Tracy a message through Renee. A simple statement. Marian is willing to settle privately. She wants to avoid public scandal. She will meet. Tracy responded within an hour. Of course she did. Because Tracy did not want court. Court meant records. Court meant witnesses. Court meant her charm would not matter. We scheduled the meeting at a neutral place. A conference room at Renee's office. There would be a camera. Legal. Properly disclosed. There would be Detective Moreno in the adjacent room listening. Tracy arrived wearing that same white sweater like it was her costume. She walked in smiling like she owned the building. "Marianne," she said, voice warm. "There you are." I stood up slowly. My legs were still weak, but I stood. Tracy's smile flickered when she saw I could stand. Then she recovered. Look at you. I'm so proud. I did not return the sentiment. I sat down. Renee sat beside me. Tracy sat across and clasped her hands like she was praying. I hate that this got messy, she said. I hate that you're confused. I looked at her calmly. I'm not confused. Tracy laughed lightly. Okay. Renee said, we're here to discuss restitution. Tracy nodded. I agree. I want to make things right. I did what I had to do. I made choices. There it was. Choices. Renee slid documents across the table. Your sister's house sale, she said. Your transfers. Your LLC. Tracy glanced at them and shrugged. I was protecting her assets. I leaned forward slightly. By selling my home to yourself. Tracy's eyes hardened. I needed stability. I said, for who? Tracy smiled. For all of us. I let a beat pass. Then I said softly, tell me about the pregnancy. Tracy's face tightened. Oh my God. Are we still doing that? Yes, I said. Tell me why you told me I was pregnant. Tracy rolled her eyes. Because you were fragile. You were waking up. You were emotional. I needed you to comply. Renee asked, comply with what? Tracy leaned back. With recovery. With rest. With staying under my care. I held Tracy's gaze. So you lied. Tracy scoffed. It was for your own good. Renee said, you told her she was pregnant with your baby. Tracy shrugged. It worked. There it was. The admission. It worked. Renee kept her voice calm. Why did you need it to work? Tracy smiled like she was explaining something obvious. Because if she got discharged too soon, she'd start asking questions, and then she'd start pulling things apart. Detective Moreno heard every word. Tracy continued, a little excited now. Too comfortable. And I wasn't done, she said. I needed time. I needed the guardianship to become permanent. I needed the judge to see her as unstable. And it was working until you two showed up. My mouth went dry. Because there was the real plan. Permanent guardianship. Not temporary. Not care. Ownership. Renee said, so you intended to keep her legally controlled. Tracy sighed. She doesn't need control. She needs guidance. Marian has always been rigid. Always judging me. I smiled faintly. So you stole my life as punishment. Tracy's eyes flashed. I took what I deserved. That was the moment she lost the room. Because even Tracy could not pretend that was love. Renee stood. Thank you, Tracy. This meeting is over. Tracy blinked. Wait, wah. Renee opened the door. Detective Moreno stepped in. Tracy's face strained. What is this? She whispered. Detective Moreno said calmly, Tracy Feldman, you're being investigated for financial exploitation, fraud, and identity theft. Tracy stood abruptly. No. No, this is insane. She looked at me. Marianne, tell him you don't want this. I stayed seated. I looked at her the way you look at a person who has finally met the mirror. And I said calmly, you told me I wasn't running my life anymore. You were right. I'm not. You are. Tracy's mouth opened. Then closed. Detective Moreno continued, we also have evidence of coercive control in a medical setting. Tracy laughed wildly. Coercive control. She was asleep. I tilted my head slightly. And you were busy. Tracy's eyes went furious. You ungrateful. Detective Moreno asked her to put her hands behind her back. Tracy backed away. No. No, Marianne, this is too far. This is the part where people expect the victim to soften. To say she's still my sister. To say I just want it back. To say I don't want her punished. But I remembered sushi. I remembered wine. I remembered the torn lab report. And I remembered her saying, it. So I watched. Tracy was escorted out of the office. And for the first time since I woke up, I felt something close to peace. The legal process took months. There were motions. Hearings. Filings. More receipts than I ever wanted to see. I learned Tracy had moved money through 3 accounts and 2 shell companies. I learned she had tried to change my will. I learned she had tried to file paperwork claiming I had expressed a desire to donate my remaining assets to family support. Family support meaning her. I learned she had told my clients I was not expected to recover and offered them new services through a different firm. Her firm? I learned she had been practicing my signature. And then I learned the twist that made me physically sick. Angela. My friend Angela Ramirez. Tracy had filed a complaint against her, claiming Angela was harassing the hospital, claiming Angela was emotionally harming the patient. Angela had been blocked, labeled a problem, all because she was the one person who would have recognized Tracy's tactics. I called Angela from rehab. When she answered, she didn't even say hello. She just started crying. "Marianne," she whispered. I tried so hard." I swallowed. "I know," she cried harder. "They treated me like I was crazy." I said, "You weren't crazy. You were right." Angela's voice shook. "How did she get guardianship?" I exhaled. "She petitioned. She used the coma. She used my absence, and she lied." Angela's voice turned firm. "Then you burn her." I smiled through my own tears. "I am." Around the 20-minute mark of this story, I want to ask you something else. Have you ever had someone tell you they were helping you while they were quietly taking from you? If you have, I want you to leave a comment with just one word: me. Because I know how isolating it feels when the person doing it is family. And I know how satisfying it is when the truth finally has paperwork. Tracy eventually took a plea deal. Not because she felt guilty. Because she was terrified of trial. Trial meant everything would be read out loud. The pregnancy lie. The house sale. The identity theft. The plan for permanent guardianship. And if you think she was only afraid of prison, you're wrong. Tracy was afraid of being seen accurately. That was her real fear. She had built her whole life on charm and confusion. If you keep people laughing, they do not look too closely. If you cry at the right moment, people assume you have a heart. If you act like the victim, nobody asks why the actual victim is so tired. In the end, Tracy lost. She lost her freedom for a while. She lost her access permanently. She lost her ability to ever touch my assets again. And she lost something else. She lost the story. Because the story was the part she lived for. The devoted sister. The miracle pregnancy. The brave guardian. Gone. 1 year after I woke up, I sat in a small Japanese restaurant not far from my new apartment. Not my old house. I got the house back eventually in a way. The court reversed the sale. The LLC crumbled under scrutiny. But it took time to unwind. In the meantime, I chose an apartment that felt simple and clean and mine. I sat in that restaurant alone and I ordered sushi. I ordered the kind with fresh salmon and soft rice and the tiniest bit of wasabi that makes your eyes water. And when the server asked what I wanted to drink, I smiled and said, "A glass of wine." The wine arrived. I lifted it slowly. And I thought about Tracy, sitting somewhere, realizing that her biggest mistake was thinking my silence meant weakness. I took a sip. And it tasted like control. It tasted like being awake. It tasted like proof. My name is Marian Feldman, and this is what happened when I was pushed beyond restraint. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this story.